welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to Art Nerds. This is the podcast where we talk with our nerdy friends about their artwork. My name is Michael Bryan, and today with me behind the microphone is my friend Brianna Malotke. Is that my?
Yep.
Okay,
Malotke.
I am Malotke. Yeah, I see it written, and I'm never sure how to pronounce
It's very German.
Brianna is a friend of mine. We've worked together on several projects, but she is here because she is an artist of many pools, many genres, many areas. So I'm going to let you start. Brianna, what is your art?
Yeah, so my background is in apparel design. And when I went to college for it, I interned with Purdue's costume shop. And I was like, this is so much more fun designing costumes for plays and musicals. And that kind of shifted my gears into wanting to pursue costumes.
Wow. So what about it turned you into the costume versus something else?
Just the challenge and the creativity that goes into costume making. You know, the whole process of just apparel design is a lot more for the masses. Like you pick your preference, you know, okay, I want to design women's wear. Well, do you want to do normal everyday wear? Do you want to do wedding dresses? Do you want to do swimsuits? But you're then kind of confined into what's going to sell.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So working in the costume shop, being surrounded by all these people that are, well, what if we do this? What if we put them in this costume? And, we can't make it out of normal cotton fabric. So let's use shower curtains. So it gets the structure, there's just a lot more freedom of creativity, and you're doing it for a designated show, and people are gonna experience it and see it, and hope that they react the way that you want them to.
So as you said, designing for the masses is not for you.
No. Like, I love functionality, and I always, when I design costumes, I always ask actors, like, okay, what kind of movements do you have to do in the show?
Right.
Are you walking? Do you have to run? Like, are you going to be on the stage floor? Like, what do you have to do? When it's a musical, are there dance numbers? Like,
oh, sure.
If you sing, we need to make your costume a little looser, account for that breath.
No accurate corsets on a singer,
yeah.
Right, kind of thing. Yeah.
And I worked in the Opera Theater of St. Louis, and so
did you really?
That was my first job out of college.
Real? I'm from the St. Louis area.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so that was kind of my first, like, oh wow moment of, when the opera singer sings, her hymn line changes. You have to account for that.
Really?
Yes. So when females particularly, or anyone that has like breasts, and you change how you stand when you sing. And so that changes
So the whole costume.
The whole costume rises. And so, if it's something that's intricate with a nice little like border at the bottom that you want people to see, you have to account for that. So there's just all these crazy things, and it's just, to me, it's a lot more challenging than say, all right, we're going to design this standard blouse, and we want it in floral print because it's spring. Like,
This tells me a lot about how your brain works.
Yeah. I have ADHD, and so I'm just always like thinking about, okay, well, what about this? And we go down this little, I call them my side quests.
Right.
So,
are you in D&D nerd too?
No, I love doing She Kills Monsters because I was like, oh, I've heard about this game.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about it. It sounds fun.
Yeah. Just for reference, Brianna and I worked on a production of She Kills Monsters. It's a stage show about Dungeons and Dragons and sisters and relationships. And the costuming was, I'm going to say, I would bet that was a little more challenging as well.
Yes.
Because you put these girls in faux armor and...
Yep. So, and that was another, are you comfortable?
Right.
How much skin are you okay with showing?
Right.
Fight scenes. Do you want to wear shorts underneath?
Yeah.
What are your, that changes how stuff fits, and quick changes. You guys had a lot of quick changes.
Yeah. And, we had full-blown sword fights. And,
yep.
Yeah, I appreciate that as a challenge.
Yeah. I think like Tilius's armor piece I constructed out of fabric and like a thick padding. So that way she could totally move around.
Oh, it looked like leather.
The gray.
Oh,
like
the gray
doublet
piece. Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But she had a shoulder piece
Yeah,
that was...
she had a fake leather shoulder piece.
Okay.
But
yeah, and they look
instead of doing like a chest armor piece, that would be really restricting.
Yeah, and they worked beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
It was marvelous. So what kind of how did you get into fashion and clothing and costume? I mean, to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, you started in fashion, but what about
So when I was growing up, I had my two grandmothers, one on each side, that were very much, what do you like? We're going to do that. And so my one grandma would always take me to plays, and every weekend it was a play, or we'd go to the art museum or the children's museum. And I'm from Cincinnati. So there's tons of everything. Puppet shows.
Yeah.
Loved that. We were members at all the different. And then so we would do something and we'd talk about it. How do you think this was made? How is this constructed?
Really?
Yes.
What a luxury.
So that is just...
Oh, I'm jealous.
So my one grandmother and I, we would do something like that, and then we'd go out to eat and we'd talk about it. We'd talk and talk, or we'd take sketchbooks to the art museum. And, sometimes I'd be like, I want to be hanging out with my friends. I don't want to talk about perfume bottles from some dynasty. I want to, but it was great. And, the more we got into seeing theater, and at least in Cincinnati, I forget what it's called, but there's this one theater, and the lobby always shows like the set designs, or they'll show pictures from the runs. And so we'd always walk around and look at everything before we went and sat our seats, and we'd always talk. And so, and then my other grandmother would just let me take apart stuff and put it together however I wanted. So I was constantly sewing buttons onto shirts, hand sewing, and just, cutting out a cool design on one shirt and just hand stitching it on another, and, just nonsensical.
Yeah, but for number one, what an education that you would never get otherwise. And then there's a sense of freedom about it.
Yeah.
That
it always kind of cracked me up, because like my dad and even my grandmother that took me to do everything, they always thought I'd go into engineering or like chemistry, something very science and math oriented. And I was like, you took me to art camps. Like, what did you think was going to happen? And so I always loved like reading and writing, and just designing my own things. And I was an avid magazine reader growing up in high school. And so I was like, you know what? I think I want to write for fashion magazines, but I think I need to know how everything's made so I know what I'm talking about.
Interesting.
So I'm going to go to school for fashion design, and I'm going to make all my extra classes geared towards writing and business and all of that.
So you knew early what kind of a direction you wanted to go.
Yeah. I kind of figured if I'm going to go spend 4 years to learn about something, I want it to be something that I'm actually interested in learning more about.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So
I'm still kind of gobsmacked at what your grandmothers did for you. Yeah, I had one of my grandmothers was, she was a housewife. I mean, she didn't, but she had a bunch of grandkids, and she would make stuff for us, and she would bring us over, and she would get out the typewriter and make us type stuff. Little stuff, not near to the degree your grandmother. So, yeah, kudos to to grandma, to your grandmothers. In terms of like your clothing design, your costuming. Okay, first I have to go back. Your folks said they wanted you to be an engineer.
Yeah.
And I would say, considering some of the things you put together for She Kills Monsters, that engineering stuff is there.
It's there, yeah.
It's so much there.
My one grandmother, she is an engineer, the one that took me to museums and everything.
Oh, she is an engineer.
Yeah, she runs her own company. And so, I'd always be floating around the office and, see all these things. And with her, it was always like, okay, how is this made? And what do you think?
She taught you how to think.
Yeah, and so I definitely have that. I love a challenge. And so with costume design, I'm like, I want this character to be like this. How are we going to get there?
Right.
How are we going to get that look?
Mm-hmm.
So I love that.
Fantastic.
Just figuring it out. Puzzles, I guess. So I definitely think if I wasn't, I guess, allowed the freedom that I was, I probably would have ended up in like mechanical engineering, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but knowing you, I suspect you might have done like how to build toys. And
Maybe.
I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
Do you have any like heroes or muses or people that inspire you in your...
Yeah. Just in general, like design wise, Coco Chanel was always a big kind of pioneer for me. Like we get a lot of, just women wearing pants and, just those stereotypical going from over the top elaborate fashion to let's get rid of all the feathers and stuff in our hats. Let's wear little boater hats. So drawing that back to more simplistic styles. There's a couple of costume designers I really like. I can never remember how to pronounce her name, but she did the costumes for Dracula.
The movie or?
The 90s version with Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
Eco.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so she's my all-time favorite. It's like one of my favorite movies of costumes. I love it.
Which speaks to your authorship a little bit, doesn't it?
A little bit.
We'll get there. What has it turned you on about it? You've always been interested in it, but have you decided or pinpointed what really sparks? This might be the dumbest question in the world. I don't know.
It just makes me happy. I don't know. I have these thoughts and I have to get them out somehow. And so, at least with costume designing, like sketches are not my strong point, but I will tell you, I will write down exactly what they're going to wear, what the colors are, what the fabrics are going to be, like when they're going to change from scene to scene.
Right.
I can't draw it, but I can tell you exactly what I'm thinking.
But it's there. Interesting.
So it's very much, I just have these ideas and I'm like, even if I'm the only one that likes them, they're getting on paper.
They're coming out one way or another.
Yeah, so.
Have you ever thought about going back to fashion design, or is it?
It's always gone? There. I'm lucky. The college I went to, Purdue University, while the program's no longer there. When I went there, they were one of the fashion majors where you learned everything. So I can pattern make by hand, just using measurements. I can do it from draping. I can make the pattern kits on the computer, scale it up. I can do all that. I can sew it. I know the different techniques. I have the different machines. So I have a general knowledge about all of it.
So do you have like a workshop then? Or
I have my office and, I have a couple regular sewing machines. I have a serger. I have a blind hemmer. I have an embroidery machine. I have my own little studio. Yeah.
So if you dream it, you can make it up.
Pretty much. Yeah. A couple mannequins. Yeah.
Yeah. Does that part turn you on? I like being able to.
Yes.
Having those skills to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was one reason I did the college I picked, and because they had a program with the London College of Fashion. And so I went there as well, and I learned hat making, which was another I'm just going to learn how to do this because it really interests me.
Because it's cool.
You can just make it with your hands, and then you have a hat.
Is it called millinery?
Millinery,
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that's a skill I've always wanted to tackle. You can see I collect hats.
Yep. So I have hat blocks.
Do you really?
Yep, I can do that.
Man. When I was in graduate school, our costume department had a hat blocking, industrial, I think it was like a mass producing felt hats. It was a steamer.
Oh, yeah.
It was a gigantic steam thing. You put the different block on it, put the felt in the thing, and it would, you could crank out a few dozen hats in a shift.
Yeah.
At least, ready enough to be decorated.
It's a process.
It is. I mean, I've seen it, but I've never done it. So, men's hats, women's hats, all of it.
Yep. So for my project, I did one that's kind of like my take on like a top hat with a lot of red feathers and some nice ribbon. And then I made more of a fascinator, which I was like you got your second project, you could buy something ready-made, and so I picked a nice little felt piece. And I hand-stitched this shiny fabric to it, and I got to dye the feathers and, figure out the netting and all of that.
So your
it's that freedom to just create.
But having the knowledge of the materials as well.
Yeah. I'm very
Dyeing
much
feathers?
like I like to touch everything, and so all of my costume designs are very tactile. Like, I like combining the different fabrics and
so visually
seeing that
and
texture.
Okay. That's okay. I'm becoming more and more enamored of your skills and what you can do. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And you said you like to write about it. I mean, was that the initial impulse to it?
Kind of. One of the things we had to do in my classes was for whenever we made something, you had to write instructions. So that was always part of the project. You had to write, about it, like what inspired you. You'd have your illustrations, you'd have your mood boards, but then you had to write about, okay, who's your consumer for this? What are they about? How did you make this? And like product descriptions. And so I've always just been writing.
So it's been, at least in school, it was part of the process.
Yeah.
Okay. Did that include like instructions on how to make the garment?
Yes.
Like
so in
simplicity
school
pattern
projects.
kind of stuff? Okay.
Yeah. And
interesting. Now, were you a writer prior to the fashion, or was it a hand in hand? It sounds like it was a hand in hand.
Kind of a hand in hand thing. Yeah. I've always been a big reader, and so I've always just had that need to jot down ideas and everything, and that just kind of stayed along with me.
Okay. Now you have had a good couple years as a writer.
Yes.
Tell me about this. I mean, because I'm not a writer. I've tried. I'm not a word person. So I'm jealous when I hear that you've got a book deal now.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, I bet. So
kind of along with journaling, one way that I kind of deal with emotions and everything is poetry. And so that's kind of been around since high school.
Okay.
Just jotting down little, and they're more for myself.
Right.
But when COVID happened and there were lockdowns and everything was closing, I lost like 3 or 4 shows that I was set to design for.
Yeah, we all did. Yeah.
And so I suddenly had all this free time. and then I got injured, and so I was really limited in what I could do. And so it was more just like, okay, well, I'm just sitting around all the time. Let's write. And then I was like, it'd be really great to like start getting this published, get this out here. And so I just kind of rolled with it. And in high school and college, I would say I wrote a lot about like love and, upbeat things. And between everything getting canceled and being injured, and, it was more dark.
The mood changed.
Yes. And so I've always loved the horror genre, and ergo Dracula, one of my hands down my favorite book by Bram Stoker.
Yeah.
And like I was just like, I'm going to give this a try. And it has been successful.
First of all, congratulations. Because you've been published in how many anthologies to this point?
So I'm in the double digits now for poetry. so far I have one that's a short story. For as far as anthologies go, the rest are all poems.
But still,
But yeah,
doesn't matter. Right?
it's definitely, I found my little niche.
Yeah. So many questions, and I need to start writing them down. Number one, why the horror genre? I mean, what?
Well,
not that
and this might go hand in hand with costumes. I love Halloween.
Okay.
Always have.
Yeah, that's a big one in our house too.
Like I always got to have Halloween parties. You know, just where all your friends come in costumes and there's like the spooky music and you play games and you eat tons of candy. And I just always loved costumes and for Halloween. And then, I got kind of into the spooky movies, and I'm not a huge like gore person.
That was my next question, yeah.
And so, I'm more into the like the others kind of movie, like the plot twists and
the gothic suspense.
More thriller horror.
Yeah, okay.
And so, I'm just like, oh, this is nice. And to me, it's kind of a challenge. Like, okay, how do you tell a horror story in under a page?
Interesting.
So with that poetry, I love it because it's, you typically a lot of places like, 40 lines or less. Well, how do you tell a whole horror story in that few lines? And so it's been really exciting to try, little jump scares, that kind of thing, but on paper.
Yeah. Now, you say you've been writing since high school. Mm-hmm. Do you have it all?
Do I have it all?
Do you have everything you've ever written from high school or on? Or?
I do, actually. My husband makes so much fun of me because I have essays that I wrote in high school that I loved. I was like, this was such a good paper. Like, on a book. Told me to keep that. I have a little binder full of stuff that I'm like, that went really well. Like, yeah, I'm going to keep that.
So you got it.
I don't need to know.
That's fine. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
So what prompted you to start submitting for publication? Was it just the COVID and the boredom, or?
A little bit, I think. And the other part was, friends and family, they're not quite into the same thing, and I just wanted to share it. And I was like, there has to be someone out there that's going to enjoy this as much as I enjoy it. And so just sharing that. And so a lot of the initial pieces that I submitted and got accepted are for, non-paid websites and digital magazines and that sort of thing. And, I was just like, this is great because people are going to get to read it and they're going to think, wow. So
it's kind of like a lot of what we do is just, I just want to talk about this cool thing and find the audience. Yeah. Yeah. Art Nerds podcast. Yeah. I want to talk to artists. That's exactly what I'm doing right now.
I have this piece written. I wrote it for myself, but I want to share it. And so how are you going to get to share that? And so, initially I would say my first kind of good chunk of time was, getting used to rejection.
Oh, my stars. Yes.
It is very difficult. And then, but that just kind of makes every yes more meaningful. So it's a process.
So you said first ones were non-paid. Are you getting paid for some of them now?
I am. Yes. Which is very nice.
I applaud you. Yeah. Which is very nice, I'm sure.
Yes. And like the book,
tell us about the new...
It's not written already. Just pieces have been written. So it was a pitch. And so just that, they liked the 3 or 4 pieces I sent them and the idea of what I had for the book. And they're like, this is great. And so just having that someone believe in you part, like we want this book. Like we want to see how it ends up.
They're excited, but having that audience excited to have you create more is...
And this, I will say, it is the perfect blend. So it is horror poetry that is inspired by deadly fashion trends over the years.
Okay, I have to wrap my head around that.
So
Suddenly that
like
is
throughout history.
that's Brianna in a capsule right
Yes,
there.
I was just like, why is no one writing about this? And
Why have you missed this? How? So trends like what?
There was a dye of green, and the shade of green was called Scheele's green. But it was laced with arsenic.
Oh.
But it was like the most beautiful shade of green. And so it was used in dresses in like the late 1800s. And so the women that wore the dresses got arsenic poisoning.
Wow.
And, there's the radium girls.
Oh, sure.
That
the ink and the, yeah.
They would lick their paintbrushes. And so they all got radium poisoning.
Oh, man.
And then just general kind of body horror ideas. There's corsetry. There's, the huge wigs that were heavy and,
Oh, right. Yeah.
lead paint was used in makeup.
Right.
So there's all these crazy things that people at some point in time were like, this is the high point of fashion.
And you've decided to write poetry surrounding these things.
Yes.
You're a genius. Oh, I cannot wait. It sounds so very Edgar Allan Poe in certain aspects. Yeah, I cannot wait for this.
I'm very excited.
So you said you got a few done.
Yep.
Do you have a deadline on this, or?
So I do. Ideally, it'll be done by the end of the year, and it'll be published next summer-ish.
So 23?
Yep. So kind of midsummer. That way it'll be out, before Halloween.
Yes, of course.
That's
Just
the plan.
Okay, yeah. Number one, I enjoy the Victorian Edwardian period. I'm a big steampunk fan, and I'm a big Edgar Allan Poe fan. And this combination of things is just beyond intriguing for me. So yeah, keep me up to date. I want to know. Kind of a slightly different vein here.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other art form that you have not dabbled in that you would like to, or that you might think you might enjoy? It's kind of a headbanger, if you will.
I've always wanted to learn how to do glass blowing. It seems like it would be very gratifying to be like, oh, I made this. But I'm just like, glass is so delicate. And I'm just like, I know I would break it. Like it would not go far. But I've always been very interested in learning how to do that because, it is something that you make with your hands, but not really.
Right.
Like your hands are using the tools, but it's not with your hands.
Right. Does that go against
not like molding clay or like
so
making
does that go
pottery.
against your tactile intuition?
A little bit. I'm just like, I would want to touch it. I would. Can't touch hot glass.
Right. It sounds like, again, you like learning about the materials, not just so much the art form, but because I can see glass being used in some of your other artwork as well. So do you do like jewelry making and stuff like that, or have you made shoes?
I have made shoes. So I took shoe design. London. So when I went to college in London, I took all the classes that I would never get to take at Purdue. So I did millinery, corsetry, and shoe design.
Wow.
And so then afterwards, every time I did a show, if I could put a corset in it, I did. Because I was like, I know how to make this. I'm going to make it for you.
Because I can.
So I can. So we took apart shoes and learned what all the different pieces were and kind of put it together again. And so I can, but
I'm sure.
Haven't since that one class.
Yeah,
but I can repair them. So that's always a good skill.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, and why glass blowing? Just like you said, just because of the.
It's so intricate, and I'm always curious, like, how do you get that shape, or just how do you mix the colors and all of that? I've tried. My grandmother's. I've tried tons of different things. I learned jewelry making. The pottery, the little making felt animals, knitting, crocheting. I've tried it all.
All that good craft.
Paint, yeah, pastels, watercolor. Very much, we definitely should have known I had ADHD a lot earlier. Just hopping from hobby to hobby. But I've never done glass blowing, so it's always intrigued me.
Interesting. Yeah, my wife is the same way. She loves glass. I mean, you can look around and have little glass bits and bobs everywhere. So yeah, I appreciate that. I see the appeal. Is there an art form that you would never want to dabble in?
I don't know. I can't think of anything I wouldn't just be like, ooh.
Because you sound like you'd try anything
I would.
if it was in front of you.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Okay.
I'm a great travel partner. I'm down for anything. Like, how do you know you won't like it unless you tried it? So.
I think everybody needs that attitude.
Yeah. It's a good way to figure out hobbies. Tried all the different sports. Tried a couple different musical instruments. Picked one.
Which one?
I played baritone.
The horn.
Boom, boom.
Oh,
the mini tuba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you still play?
I do not. I have it, but I don't.
Okay. Fair enough.
It's kind of.
It's bulky.
When am I going to play this? I went to camp. I went to poetry camp, and they were like, "Bring your instruments for jam sessions," and I was like, "Who is gonna jam with a baritone?" Like they clearly mean guitars. And my grandma was like, "No, just take your baritone." No one needed a baritone for a jam session.
Not exactly a party instrument.
No. It's hefty.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
I
great.
would love to learn how to do anything. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't think of anything I wouldn't try. I'm sure there are plenty of things I would try that I'd be awful at, but I'd still try it.
but none of them turned you off to the
No.
point where I ain't getting near it.
Mm-mm.
Okay, last question. Where can we see more of your art? Or read more of your art?
Yeah. I mean, I do have a couple of websites. My writing one is just Malotke Writes. Very simple. And
MalotkeWrites.com?
Well, it's like a Wix site. So it's like brimalotke.wix.com. But if you just Google Malotke Writes, it pops up.
Okay, I'll look it up and put it in the descriptors.
And so I try and share everything possible that comes up. And I put that on there. And as far as costumes go, I have another one that's Malotke Designs. And so all of my costume stuff gets put up there.
Fantastic.
And so I usually have a what's upcoming, that kind of, what's happening.
Yeah. So you do a better job at keeping it up than most of us.
I try, and then I forget, and, show already happened. And
So it happens.
Yeah.
So Malotke Writes, and then Malotke Designs.
Yep.
Design, or just design?
Designs. With an S.
With an S at the end.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I will look them up and put the...
I have a blog called Malotke Sews.
What's the blog about?
Costuming and my reviews of apparel and costume related books.
Oh, very nice.
So like, coffee table books or designer biographies, patterning books, all that stuff. But I, a lot of the stuff I like to make in shows, I will then put like, this is how it was made.
Oh.
And I put it on the blog.
Very cool. I had no idea about the blogs and the website. Yeah, I'm going to go
The blog was mainly for me to kind of keep a record of what I do and And then I just like writing so much. I just write about everything.
So, that's
So
great.
it's Malotke and everything I do.
Malotke does something else.
Yep.
Well, thank you very,
Yeah.
very much for.
It's a lot of fun.
Oh, this is fun. I mean, I knew you were a genius, but I had no idea that. I had no idea you had such amazing skills. I've only worked. Okay, I have to tell. I only worked with Brianna as a theater costumer. I'm a director, and Brianna has done a couple
We've done
shows. We've
two
done 2
shows.
shows together, and everything she brings to the table is just fantastic. I mean, she shows me. I don't know if you did any drawings for either show.
I don't think I did.
I think you just did a lot of research material and
Yep.
said this is this, and this, and
Yep.
everything was so spot on. So, yeah. So we think in the same direction at least. So
I'm not great at the sketching, so I
No.
just wow you with the presentation.
and she's done it twice, and we'll probably do it again.
Yeah.
So again, thank you so much for
thanks for having me.
spending the morning with me and
Yeah.
and sharing and showing off. Thank you very much.
Thank you.